In the news this week, Waifu thermal paste. It's actually a thing. We'll also be, we're reporting on it apparently. We'll also be talking about CableMod and its adapter recall, which is now official and filed through the US CPSC. Additionally, news of a pre-built PC that ships with malware pre-installed. Perfect. It'll steal your passwords and it can apparently also access crypto wallets. So just another thing to put on your list of anxieties when you buy a pre-built PC. Let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermal Grizzly and the CryoSheet graphene pads. These CryoSheets are molecularly stacked in the Z-axis to encourage vertical direct thermal transfer from the IHS to the cooler. CryoSheet pads are made to be easily applicable for a thermal interface and completely avoid paste dryout because it's not paste. It makes them particularly useful for long service life systems with minimal maintenance. They come in multiple sizes for suitability on the most common laptops and desktop CPUs, and you can learn more at the Thermal Grizzly CryoSheets at the link in the description below. First up, there's huge news in the thermal paste market. You can now get it scented. It comes in either strawberry scented or apple scented, and a Japanese company called Clockwork Tea Party, which we hadn't heard of before this, has launched a new version of its Extreme Grease. That's the categorization of the product. As for what that product is, just make sure I get this right. It is their hypersonic polish compound. I'm assuming it goes 3,500 miles per hour or faster. It's like an airspeed. The paste is colored pink, and it doesn't smell like the kinds of pastes we're used to smelling here at GN. And believe me, I know a lot about smelling glue. This pink Waifu emblazoned hypersonic polish compound even includes charts in its marketing. This chart shows something. We're assuming the left axis is strength of scent, and the horizontal axis is the number of waifus on the box art. When we started researching this company, we learned that this is not only not their first thermal paste, it is also not their first scented thermal paste. It's just that this one happens to be launching to align with Valentine's Day. Nothing more romantic than buying pink Waifu emblazoned strawberry scented thermal paste. It's the perfect gift. The company previously launched the apple scented variant that's green, so maybe if you repasted every heatsink in your computer, it might be enough volume of scented paste to turn the PC into a diffuser. The paste is about $7 US, and if you were wondering who'd buy it, it's sold out. The PC enthusiast community never lets us down, and even though this would be a completely different approach to testing, we're gonna do our best to get some in for benchmarking. Now, normally, developing a new testing methodology like we're doing right now for ATX cases, it takes weeks or months of time. But this, well, smelling paste is already a standard part of our benchmarking processes here at Gamers Nexus. So this one would just be factored into the SOP for paste sniffing. The company actually has several other thermal pastes listed, each with various thermal conductivity ratings, ease of application, and durability ratings, and anime characters. And now that we're done with the most important news for the week, moving on to another story. Fire hazards. CableMod is doing a voluntary recall of its 12-volt high-power adapters. These are specifically the adapters, not the cables. And this is something that CableMod initiated, I think it was back in December, and only now has it been fully finalized. So that's actually because the US CPSC takes a long time to approve all this stuff. And as some background information, the CPSC is the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and when there's a voluntary recall like this, where it's all official and formalized, so CableMod basically went through lawyers, contacted the CPSC, and they said, we want to do this recall. When that's the case, the CPSC is heavily involved, and they have to approve everything. So they do the sign-offs on the press release that gets sent out by the company. They do their own press release and statement at a government level. And they also have to approve and sign off on the compensation plan that the company's offering. So this process takes a while, and we're basically following up on what the final approach to all of this was from the CPSC and CableMod. So buyers of the original V1.0 and the updated 1.1 angled adapters, which were 1.1 is supposed to fix problems that 1.0 had, can apply for a refund of the purchase price of the adapter plus the shipping cost. That shipping cost is important to us because whenever it's a company fault and it's not like the consumer bought the wrong thing or the wrong size or whatever, then they should be reimbursing the shipping as well. So our gamers.nexus failure analysis and PC hardware recall mini website will be sending out, or has already sent out, a newsletter blast to those of you who are on that newsletter list to detail this. And just as a reminder, we have that online specifically for instances like this. So if you don't follow hardware day to day and you want to make sure if there's some kind of major safety recall or product recall in general for a defect in the industry, you want to get notified of it, and you don't continuously watch videos after you build a PC, you can sign up for that. It's free. We don't do anything with the emails other than send a newsletter whenever there's a recall or a failure like this. And so people who are on that list will be notified and given details on it. All right, so the US government post is entitled, quote, GPU angled adapters recalled due to fire and burn hazards manufactured by CableMod. To recap, the US CPSC says, quote, the adapter's male connector can become loose, overheat, and melt into the GPU, posing fire and burn hazards. The CPSC states that about 25,300 units are affected for this specific version of the adapter. And additionally, CableMod has sold many tens of thousands more 12-volt high-power products than this, but the cables are unaffected. This exclusively relates to the angled adapters. Version 1.1 was supposed to address this by tightening the connection of the adapter in the socket. Apparently that wasn't the case, or it didn't fully solve it. We wonder if there might also be a batch issue somewhere where a particular set of them caused these issues for CableMod. CableMod stated this in its post. It said, quote, our goal is to take the angled adapters off the market and to keep everyone and everything safe. They also stated, quote, if you have a CableMod angled adapter, you should stop using it immediately. The all caps is their flavor for that. The CPSC listing adds a few extra details that aren't present in CableMod's original notification from December. The firm received 272 reports of issues with the adapters melting, with at least $74,000 in property damage claims in the US. There were no injuries reported in association with this. Applying simple division with those numbers gives an average damage of $272 per claim. That's way below the value of any GPU with a 12-volt high-power connector. So we take that to mean that not all of those reports were damage to the GPU, and probably most of them were just damage to the adapter itself. There's another complication here too, which is that additionally, CableMod has been taking it upon itself to aggressively replace entire GPUs or reimburse its customers for the purchase of those GPUs if they were damaged in connection with one of CableMod's adapters that's being described here. CableMod has taken the approach of reimbursing customers. That means that those agreements would be handled separately, potentially without any report ever getting fed back to the CPSC, because it's fixed by CableMod, resolved directly with the customer, and so that's kind of its own pile of data that may not be factored in here. Applying for the refund or store credit with CableMod requires going to the link provided, filling out some forms, and uploading photo proof of destruction of the adapter. CableMod also provides a video of how to disable the adapter by shoving a flat-end screwdriver between the pins and twisting until sufficiently mangled. You can just barely see the moment of hesitation before he twists the driver, so rest in peace to that one. The CPSC states this as the remedy, quote, consumers should immediately stop using the recalled angled adapters and contact CableMod for instructions on how to safely remove their adapter from the GPU and for a full refund, including cost of shipping or a $60 store credit for non-customized products with free standard shipping. Consumers will be asked to destroy the adapter and upload a photo of the destroyed product to this link. The instructions on how to safely remove the adapter are also located on that site. Once destroyed, consumers should discard the adapter in accordance with local laws. So in this type of scenario, we completely agree with destroying the product. This goes back to something we talked about with the NZXT H1 with the PCIe riser for that, where our concern for that type of failure, and it's the same as here, is that long term, if someone throws it in a bucket in the these are cables I might need one day pile, there's a risk that you forget about this and use it, or that someone else uses it. Additionally, if someone sells it secondhand, it is now unknown potentially to that buyer that this adapter had a problem. So we agree here with the destruction of it, and you should just destroy it and take it completely out of service. That way, no matter where you discard it, it doesn't get picked up and used by someone else in the future. There are local e-waste centers basically everywhere that'll handle the recycling or disposal of it for you. So you can Google for your local handler for that. Now, if you have a GPU damaged by a failed adapter, CableMod will still repair it if the claim is submitted by March 7th. They pushed this date back. Originally, it was February 22nd, but they've added time to that. They did, however, state that they are no longer going to reimburse the entire purchase price of GPUs now that this notice is going out. So if you have a failure that's related to one of their adapters, you need to let them know immediately to get it resolved by them, because now that they're saying, hey, stop using these and get rid of them, yeah, after I guess a couple weeks, they're not going to help you anymore with the cost of the card itself if you decide to continue using the adapter. The only risk there, of course, is if someone is unaware of it, and that's why you should subscribe to that newsletter. And probably the CPSC as well, just as a general safety guidance, because they'll notify you of all kinds of failures like microwaves, cars, whatever it may be. So as for CableMod, they say they have no plans for more adapters of the 12-volt high power variant. There will not be any angled adapter V1.3 or 2 or whatever. Instead, they're directing people to buy their straight and angled cables, which they say remain unaffected by all this. Okay, next one. Disney is set to invest $1.5 billion into Epic. That's a lot of money. Disney, well, maybe not for Disney. It's like they cleaned out their couch. And they're like, what can we put this into? Disney is buying an equity stake in the company pending regulatory scrutiny. And in addition to this, the two companies are set to embark on a multi-year collaboration on a, quote, all new games and entertainment universe that will further expand the reach of beloved Disney stories and experiences. It's no secret that Epic has been completely obsessed, at least at the leadership level, with this idea of a metaverse at some point. Unfortunately, that word is still following us around, and so this sounds kind of like they're maybe going that direction with it. The press release goes on to say, quote, the new persistent universe will offer a multitude of opportunities for consumers to play, watch, shop, and engage with content. We're sure the emphasis there belongs to the word shop. The billions of dollars don't come from nowhere. It's not explicitly stated, but this may mean that Disney is essentially contracting with Epic to develop or co-develop its games in the foreseeable future. Disney didn't announce any specific new games in its press release, but it did say that they're all going to be on Unreal Engine. And additionally in the press release, several times in fact, they note that their characters and IP will appear in Fortnite. So it's almost like Disney executives have realized that this is a thing that produces money with past collaborations with Epic, and so now they're gonna keep doing the thing that produces money. And it does seem to be working for Disney. So anyway, prepare to get 360 no-scoped and danced on by Goofy sometime in the near future. The timing of this is pretty interesting. Epic laid off over 800 employees back in September of 2023. It also got rid of a bunch of contractors, and per contacts that we have at the town council, it has also indefinitely paused construction of its former mall-turned-desolate wasteland landscape that was to become its new office in the center of the town it's in. That was a $100 million project, and Epic clearly needs the money now. Otherwise, it may not have been seeking investment from Disney. Now, that probably has been in the works for a couple years, but so too has Epic's need for cash. To us, this chain of events paints Epic as being desperately in need of cash on hand. That's hard to imagine from the creators and beneficiaries of both Fortnite and Unreal Engine revenue, but irresponsible growth and spending can blow through any fortune. Up next, CPU sales are skyrocketing. So after a brief lull in sales previously in 2023, CPU shipments are back on the rise. John Petty Research put this report together and stated that 66 million units were shipped in Q4, and that represented a 7% increase quarter over quarter versus Q3 of last year. More significantly, however, JPR noted that there's been a 21.8% increase compared to the previous year altogether. Additionally, according to Tom's Hardware, these figures are higher even than the amount of CPUs shipped during the pandemic era between 2021 and 2022, when there was an influx of people building and buying PCs to work from home. The increase in CPU shipments in Q4 has largely been driven by mobile processors, with notebook CPUs making up 70% of the pie and relegating desktop CPUs to the remaining 30%. JPR also notes that IGPs have increased in Q4 by 7% to 60 million units, and this represents, they state, a year-over-year increase of 18%, with the company predicting that iGPUs within the PC market will reach 98% saturation in 5 years. Up next, TSMC, currently dominating in the ranks for semiconductor fabs in the world. According to Taipei-based financial analyst Dan Neistat, TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor, has now become the largest semiconductor maker in the world by revenue. Historically, Intel and Samsung have traded blows in the space and led TSMC, but both companies have lagged behind since 2022, with TSMC playing catch-up. Last year, TSMC generated $69.3 billion in revenue, which is what's propelled it to the top. Intel and Samsung were neck and neck in 2023, with the Silicon Valley-based Intel pulling in $54.23 billion and Samsung trailing behind at $50.99 billion. These figures encompass the three companies' total revenue and not just chip manufacturing. Tom's Hardware reports that NVIDIA could have ended 2023 raking in over $58 billion, which we'll know soon officially, and that would put it in second place behind TSMC. But NVIDIA isn't a chip fab, and so it ultimately relies on these other parties to make its silicon. NVIDIA has worked with Samsung and TSMC for, actually it's GPUs, not just the memory for Samsung in the past. There have been rumors lately of NVIDIA apparently talking to Intel and its foundry service about making some of its components as well. So NVIDIA is fairly agnostic here, and it just seems to work with whatever fab either has the best technology or gives it the best deal, or a combination of both. TSMC owns some of the most advanced fabs in the world, most of them in Taiwan and the southern end of the island. They're working on building a new fab as well in the US. I think it's in Arizona, not far from Intel, and so they're expanding. Many of you likely don't remember this unless you've been in this industry for a while, but there was an era when AMD owned its own fabs, and in fact, maybe somewhat famously for the time, AMD's then CEO and founder stated that, quote, "real men have fabs." That was the actual quote. Maybe it was definitely an interesting one, because this has drastically changed since then, where AMD, like a lot of other of these chip designers these days, have gone completely fabless. And it's worked out well for them, worked out well for NVIDIA as well. And now you're really not left with many companies that can manufacture these chips at the silicon level. It's IFS, Intel Foundry Services, and Intel itself, of course, TSMC, Samsung. There's other ones that make things like Micron, obviously, is out there. But in terms of things that end up in a GPU or a CPU, there aren't many options. Okay, next one. John of the Net Guy Reviews received a small pre-built from Ace Magic, and that is the AD08. This was to review. This story is kind of crazy because upon booting it, he noticed that Windows Defender found some suspicious files on the Windows recovery partition, and he did a more in-depth scan and found additional concerning information with sketchy files on the C drive within the Windows folder. He then uploaded this to virustotal.com and saw 50 various scanners on the site identify it as malware. According to John, the Net Guy Reviews reviewer, it was Redline Stealer malware that's capable of doing things like stealing passwords, emptying crypto wallets, hijacking Steam accounts, and more. Highlighting how this was not an isolated incident, John noted that an Ace Magic AD15 PC, a different one, was purchased by a friend who had malware on his system as well. Furthermore, a review on Amazon from purchaser Eclectic Sal stated, quote, "arrived with malware installed," noted a backdoor, and said this is a Trojan, which is a remote access tool known for its data stealing capabilities. It was hard-coded into the Windows recovery, so it would not be wiped on reset. Windows was also a spoofed version, not a valid product key. End quote from that reviewer. This, by the way, on the list of many reasons, including money laundering, that you will not ever see a CD key gray market seller as an advertiser on our channel. There are many other reasons too, but if you happen to source the software from a site that claims to sell cheap keys and also get the key from them, now you're in kind of dangerous territory. Getting the key that's gray market enough, but if you also download it from them, you might be asking for trouble, especially with an OS. So in the very least, no matter what you're doing, if you install Windows, make sure you get the Windows Boot Media installer from Microsoft. It's the safest way to do it. Anyway, digging deeper into this, John said that he purchased a similar unit off of Amazon for $500, so awesome job to John. This is the first time I've personally heard of the Net Guy Reviews channel, And it's a really interesting story. You should go check it out and watch some of the other videos because I was impressed with the research here. But the box looked the same except for a sticker with a P2 designation. And upon closely inspecting the second unit, he deemed it devoid of malware. So he suspected malicious software on the original review unit derived from a hacked version of Windows 11, contacted Ace Magic to get further information, and the company responded with, quote, "Hi John, yes, the virus software issue has been resolved, and the current stock product offering this issue will no longer be present in the current offerings as the one sent to you was the first shipment, and we apologize that it had these issues and caused you some distress, but please don't worry, everything has been properly resolved now. Thank you for your support, smiley face," and exclamation point. Now that's a good email. First of all, this to us, this is completely unacceptable, and this is not a recoverable fault. This is the type of thing that should instantaneously kill a pre-built company because that's literally their job, is to not fuck that up and steal from the customer. So either, there's a couple options here. It could be malicious. It could also be the factory installing it. It could be an extremely incompetent mistake of using stolen Windows on products that you were then selling to people without thinking through the potential consequences of that. But in any of those three events, it's not excused. There is absolutely no way to accept or reconcile this type of fault. This, to us, is a death sentence to a pre-built company. And they do deserve to go out of business because that is pretty bad. I mean, you're talking about, there aren't many things that you buy and own and use in your life where if something goes wrong with it, everything you own could be effectively taken from you, or at least your world could be temporarily turned upside down. A computer is one of those things because you're talking about something that has all of your bank account information, maybe has your tax information saved on it, a PDF that's got your social security number on it. It might have credit card access information, could have mortgage information. There's all kinds of things that are saved and stored on a computer, which with the wrong type of malware, you're in a bad spot. Identity theft is kind of the best outcome for some of these scenarios. So, and that's not a good outcome. So anyway, we are definitely fine with erring on the side of never buy from Ace Magic. By the way, great job to John. Go check it out. The Net Guy Reviews is the channel. I'm going to link that one below. And awesome story and work by John over there. Definitely impressed. Okay, EKWB is throwing its hat into the ring for cable management simplification with a bunch of new cables to simplify it. These are OmniLink cables, and it's a little confusing at first look. It's not obvious from the press release what they actually do to simplify anything. EK is using an 8-pin microfit connector, the same base size that 12-volt high power and 12-volt 2x6 use, as a way to carry 12 volts, 5 volts, PWM, TAC, and DRGB signals all in the same connector. This is the same as what EK uses between its quantum impulse and FPT fans for daisy chaining. What's launching now is a whole family of splitters, extensions, and source wire harnesses to create a cabling backbone of sorts for fans and any DRGB devices in the whole system. There aren't any EK pumps or reservoirs announced yet that use the OmniLink system, but we wouldn't be surprised if those follow at a later date. The most intriguing and potentially scary ones are intended to draw power straight from the power supply and aren't fully assembled. This means the user is required to pin out the end that goes to the power supply, and since not all power supplies are pinned alike, the user will need to pay extremely close attention to getting this part right. Otherwise, you risk creating maybe shorting 12 volts to ground or sending the wrong voltage down the wrong wire. Both of these would be bad situations. The upside of connecting straight to the power supply, however, is raising the maximum current available to 8.5 amps for both the 5 volt and 12 volt wires each, which is higher than possible on SATA power, and likely not as unwieldy as the old Molex peripheral power connector is. EK also has Molex and SATA power adapter versions for the less adventurous. It's hard to tell if this would actually result in less cable clutter, but what is clear is that the industry clearly desperately wants something that's a little more uniform, except most of these companies have too much hubris to align with another company, either because of licensing, because why would you pay for that, or because they all think that they've done it better than the next person over. Corsair and Height, as an example, are basing their solutions on something a little more standard, which is a USB Type-C cable. May have an edge due to the ubiquity and the form factor, but they also each do some unique things within their own ecosystems, where connecting one company's thing to another company's thing that all pass the same power and data down different wires. It's not possible. So anyway, obviously this is the direction the industry wants to go. It's just a question of whose new standard ends up actually unifying people rather than just creating a new standard per the XKCD comic. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to support us and our reporting directly. And go to gamers.nexus to sign up for that failure newsletter. We're sending one out for the CableMod stuff just to make sure everyone who's in our community and wants to follow up on this stuff is aware of it. And we'll keep doing that anytime another one's announced. So thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.